with the 14th pick overall, the Buffalo Sabres would like to select from the Finnish Men's League, Konsta Helenius.
I like this guy, man. He's exciting to watch.
He is a nice player.
The pick is in from the Buffalo Sabres at the Sphere in Vegas, and that's where we are, and welcome into our live coverage reaction to the Sabres pick, which did land at 14th overall after having made the move earlier in the week to slide down from 11 to 14. They clearly got one of the players, Marty Biron, that was in that group, that range that when you go through every single draft prognosticator, draft expert, draft guru, anyone who's a prospect evaluator had seemingly in different positions, but the same names here through the top 15, and Buffalo ends up getting what maybe they need more of, and that is the Finnish style of hockey player, and Konsta Helenius will eventually fit that bill for this team.
Well, it's interesting that, the first Finnish captain to have lifted a Stanley Cup is Alexander Barkov with the Florida Panthers this year. And Konsta Helenius is the youngest, the only player behind Barkov to have had most points in the Liga, Finland League, before the age of 18, right? So you got Barkov and you got Helenius. So I think that's definitely a feather in his cap, Duffer, as we'd like to say. But no, more importantly, you did mention Chris Peters was on Sabres Live with us yesterday from the Wynn, the hotel, and he had his mock draft, right? The top 12 that he had in his mock draft were picked in the first 12 position. So he was 12 for 12. The Flyers at 13th go off the board with Jet Luchenko, who is ranked 18th on Chris Peters' mock draft. So then the Sabres got what was Peters listed as 13th, so the next best according to Chris Peters. So I think that's what the Sabres went on to do, and I'm sure there was a lot of chatter on the draft floor when it comes to the Sabres and the 14th pick, because at some point Zeev Bouillon was still available. Minnesota moved up a pick.
Dickinson was still available.
Sam Dickinson was available until San Jose at 11th. So there was a lot of, those type of players that could have been top 10 that were still there, but eventually it probably didn't materialize into anything, trades or assets that the Sabres wanted to get, and then they go with Konsta Helenius, who is 5'11", 190 pounds, but from what I'm reading on him, is extremely agile and strong on his skates, which is great for his position and the way that he plays.
Well, so every year, obviously, amidst the Stanley Cup Finals, so sometimes this can get, or Stanley Cup playoffs, pardon me, depending on your perspective and what you want to be focused on, the final rankings come out through Central Scouting, and it's North American skaters and international skaters, of which Helenius ranked third among international skaters according to Central Scouting. And you mentioned the point totals, which were pretty impressive, trailing only Barkov, Granlund, and Capo Caco when you're talking about a young player at the highest level and the points impact that he had. And just, even hearing moments before we hit the air from Craig Button, who was on Sabres Live this morning, and just the ongoing dialogue through this first round between he and Bob McKenzie as they compile their annual lists and build out their mock drafts and all the rest of it, they've been really fascinated to see just the different placement of these players. Just for example, like Bob McKenzie had Helenius at 9th. Corey Pronman had him at 14. Scott Wheeler, who we had on the show from The Athletic, had him at 10. And Chris Peters, as you mentioned, had him at 13. So
Craig Button had him at 6.
And that is kind of cool about what we've witnessed so far in this first round. And it started with Anaheim at number 3, right? Like that.
That was a surprise.
That gave... We only know that because of the reaction of the player.
Well, Beckett Seneca got drafted by the Anaheim Ducks at 3, and when he was picked, his mouth, jaw dropped wide open, looked over to his family, said, holy you-know-what, and then was in complete disbelief that it was happening. But I think that when that happened at 3, you knew that there was going to be some unexpected things to happen in the draft,
Correct.
some picks that were going to move, right? Like Ivan Demidov dropping to 5 with the Montreal Canadiens. But after 10, 11, 12, it seems to have settled everything. So the Sabres haven't moved from 11th to 14th in that trade with San Jose yesterday, getting an extra second rounder. Now they were sitting at a guy that they say, hey, you know what? He is really strong. He's still only just 18 years old.
Yeah,
and
just turned in May.
Just turned in May.
Yep.
And it's shown so much potential at the center position. And I think the Finnish hockey player are some of the smartest hockey players in the world. Every time I played with a Finn, there's a hockey sense that comes with those guys. So I know that with Konsta Helenius, there's definitely some hockey sense there that the Sabres really fell in love with.
What do you think of? Who do you think of? Like when you watch, and we can show the highlight reel again here, basically of his body of work. As we just saw what he put in at the combine. But whether it's visually when you see a headshot or when you start looking in the mechanics of some of these moves, who and what do you think of?
Well, when I see him skating and playing, I think of Matt Zuccarello. I know he's not a Finn, but he looks like a right-handed shot that has a long stick. Zuccarello's left-handed shot, but still in the same realm of stick.
You were going to say Sphere.
Same Sphere. Yes, we are here at Sphere. But no, it has the same look, but from the other side, right? A player that plays with the puck away from the body a lot. So it's kind of leading players to go to the puck, but then is able to escape that pressure by moving it to a different location. Loves to attack the middle of the ice, as we just saw on this clip here, going on a rush chance, but going to the middle of the ice. Does not shy away from contact. So, you know what? He looks like Rasmus Dahlin. Like if you do a side-by-side, headshot, you say, that could be Rasmus Dahlin's youngest brother. But he is a Finn, not a Swede. But still, they're pretty close there in Scandinavia.
Don't say they're that close. They may be close geographically.
Yeah.
But you're right, and that's part of the reason why I asked the question, because I knew you'd gravitate towards a familiar name, a familiar face, if you will. And I love the highlight reel. I love the fact that this draft had so many high-end defensemen talked about. And as it worked its way ever closer to the Sabres at 14, through the first 12 picks, 6 forward, 6 D.
Yes.
And it was, again, it was names coming off the board just in front of where they were originally slotted at 11, and then in that window of time. And then obviously now it ends up being a forward. And when you think of how the roster has been constructed already, the present roster of the Sabres, and the number of first-round picks that are still vying to get in, and so many of them at the forward position. Like, on the surface, when you see the resume of Helenius and the recognition of Benson joining the squad last year, Cousins, Quinn, Savoy, Roseanne,
Kulik,
Ostland, what do you think stands out with Helenius that is different? Because I think there was probably a concern, and that might be overstating it, but there might have been a concern among Sabre fans based on what some of the draft insiders were saying as far as the type of player that Buffalo might kind of have fall into their lap, if you will,
yes,
at 14. And that might be a smaller forward, high skill, right? Do you sense that Helenius is a little different than some of the North American prospects that were kind of gathering the attention, like the Cole Eisermans or the Berkeley Cattons of the world? You know what I mean?
I think a lot of the forwards at the top of the draft were smaller forwards. And when you get to the second round, you may be drafting a 6'3", 210 pounds, 18-year-old forward that is going to develop even in a bigger frame and be able to have more of that physical play on the ice. But when you look at Konsta Helenius, for me, it's not about, he's 5'11". Yeah. But how does he play the game? He doesn't get beat off the puck one-on-one. He does take a lot of hits and loves to get body contact to create. There is some smaller players that were definitely selected. And we talked about Cole Eiserman. I talked about him a lot. Some experts even said, look, if Cole Eiserman was 6'2", it'd probably be a top 5 draft pick. I get it, but that's not the reality here. And, you've got to obviously build with what you're able to pick at 14th, like the Sabres were picking. But the one thing that I always think of when it's a forward is, we've had that conversation with Dylan Cousins and with Yuri Kulik and with others, is he can play center, but it could also be moved to the wing.
Yep.
Right wing, mostly because of the right hand shot, but can definitely play center and move to the wing if you have to. So now you're filling in from a position of strength in the middle, which the Sabres do have a lot of strength down the middle in their prospect pool. And then you hope that some of them will fill in on the wing as well.
Yeah, you say that, but at the same time, it's still an unknown, right? Especially after the departure of Middlestat. And I think that's what we're staring at here is the short-term solution to that roster construction, third and fourth lines, but then pushing it down the road as far as the prospects that, like a Yuri Kulik, is he a center? Is he a winger? Is he making the NHL in the upcoming months?
Yes.
Right? Where is he going to slot in? Ostlund, same thing, right? But there's so much to still gain for him in terms of size and experience on the North American rinks. And I look at Helenius and I see it differently than I do with some of the names that are already in the system. And I think I'm really curious to hear what Kevin Adams and the entire department saw and some of the intangibles. Like the beauty of this night and this whole event, the funneling down to get to your list and then to hear what people actually say about these players in their projections at the next level. I mean, I kind of chuckle because you and I try to avoid repetition when it comes to how people describe the game, right? You're always trying to be fresh. Like, just as an example, go to Elite Prospects and under player type, like, I'm gushing right now.
Okay.
Cerebral tactician. Like, oh my gosh. Like, give me that.
I may need a dictionary to understand what that means, but I like
that every single day because it's a different way of saying high hockey IQ, right? Smart player, intelligent, all ends of the ice, like 200-foot player. And there cannot be enough of these types of players in your stable, I think.
I think that's well said, but also, many experts and most experts have also said the Sabres are deep in their stable when you look at prospects and picks. So you're going to look at Konsta Helenius and you're going to say, well, he is probably like this player. Why? Because the Sabres have a lot of their boxes are checked. Like we have this. So obviously, yes, I look at it and saying the Sabres, like many, we were saying, oh, this is probably a pick that you can trade and try to add some strength right now. But the Flyers moved back one spot and got a third-round pick next year for that. The Sabres moved back 3 spots and got a second-round pick this year.
Yes.
And a good one.
But also flip that coin as to the other 2 teams involved in the transactions.
Yes.
San Jose wanted to move up and went to 11. Minnesota moved up by only giving up a third-round pick to move up the 1 spot to get Steve William, who everybody or a lot of people had been talking about with high regard.
My
right?
way of saying it is that Philly didn't take a whole lot to move down 1.
Right.
The Sabres got a much better deal getting a second-round pick this year to move down 3 because it was done yesterday. Obviously, I think that, look, trades are great, right? The Montreal Canadiens swapped first-round pick with the LA Kings and gave up a couple of picks way later in the draft. So I'm looking at it. The Sabres were looking to acquire assets, be able to put something together for a trade. It didn't materialize before this first round pick. So now you turn around and you say, let's embrace this pick. Let's see what Helenius can do in his development and help the Sabres down the road. But this was the best player available. This was a player that has a lot of the qualities that you would want into a prospect that is just turned 18 years old, that played with men in Finland,
well,
did not play
key,
in
right?
junior and anywhere else. He played in the Finnish Elite League, and that's tough to do, and he was able to put a ton of points.
And, when you don't want to base it too much or, at all on geography, especially this year when we were talking about a couple of Norwegians, which is still rare in the overall history of the league.
Yes.
But I can't not sit here and express the excitement of having another Finnish player in the stable here. You just look at the backgrounds, but the historical success just in the last 10 years. But if you want to go beyond, like, this incredibly small country, population-wise, has produced so many good teams. And the only way you have those results is these individuals who are willing to embrace the team concept,
yes.
right? And so, we've seen Henri Jokiharju's development on the blue line, and now when you look at the forward ranks, I would say, there's been a little push organizationally, and it's by happenstance, obviously, that you've had more Swedes entering the organization in recent years. But my goodness, like this is, well, first of all, we should have Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen.
I was going to say, Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is going to say, hey, you know what, thank you very much. I love my compatriots and another player from Finland coming in.
Yeah.
But, again, look, that Norwegian you're talking about, Nygaard got picked right after. Mm-hmm. That was also somebody that the Sabres had been, showing some interest in. But when Helenius is available at 14, and he was ranked by most between 10 and 14,
sure.
and they're able to get him at 14th, I think that's the player to select, and will fit in well in development with what the Sabres already have as prospects right now.
What do you want to see at development camp?
I want to see a shootout goal. I want to see the moves. I want to be. You know why? Because I talk about shootouts is that it shows the poise and the confidence to a lot of these prospects to come in and want to impress and want to show their skill level. And so, I know they're going to play 3-on-3 on Thursday, and they're going to have, their practices and going through. But even after practice, put the pucks in the middle and say, let's do a little juice boy for, whatever, breakaway competition.
Yeah.
And let's see how much confidence he has in wowing the people that are there.
Right, and obviously as we continue our live reaction from Sphere in Vegas on night one of the NHL Draft, we are expecting to hear from Konsta Helenius very shortly,
yes.
So stay with us for that as you continue to indulge in the highlight reels that he has amassed to this point in his career. At the age of 18, he's had international opportunity and obviously success, relatively speaking, but just the fact that you're on the world stage and he's played, again, at the highest level of competition as an 18-year-old. It's always so hard to judge, Marty. I would say more often than not when you're trying to evaluate the kids that are in the KHL or in the MHL over in Russia, because sometimes the stats are so incredibly low, and you know that the ice time is incredibly low. But this is someone who was able to carve out opportunity and then production as a very young player in a top league, and that is what to me kind of stands out.
At almost a point a game, almost a point a game in the Finnish Elite League. I mean, that's important.
We actually have the opportunity now to hear from Buffalo's first-round pick, Konsta Helenius.
Yes and no, but yeah, it was a good pick.
What kind of conversations did you have with him?
Very similar than other teams, just about my long season, and about everything, my family, and yeah.
How would you describe your season? Playing in 3 tournaments, playing in Liga, what did you gain from the entire experience?
Yeah, it was a long season, I think, over 90 games. Yeah, I think I played really well, and against men, it's hard.
What's the experience like of playing against the men when you're, I guess, you're 16 or 17?
16.
I mean, what was that like for you to play against grown men when you're that young?
I think it was good for me to play against men because I like to battle hard, and I'm not the biggest guy, but I think I'm a very strong guy, and it was good for me.
It looked like you had a terrific season last year. Did you really feel like you belonged last year, I guess, so to speak?
Belong to where?
Like, did you feel like you weren't just a kid anymore? You were like their peer, you know what I mean? That type of thing.
I don't know. It feels it felt a big thing to play in Liga, but I think I did a great job on the first season in Liga. So, yeah.
You said you like to battle hard. Has that always been part of your personality?
Yeah, I think so. I said that I have older brothers, so we fight when I was a kid. So that was the one reason why I like to battle hard.
What did you and your older brothers battle in? Was it like in hockey or other things?
In hockey and every other things.
Who usually won the fights?
What?
Who usually won the fights?
Big brother. He's so big guy.
And your father played pro too?
No. Junior.
What do you know about Sabres players, teams? Have you watched them at all?
Yeah, I know something. It's hard in Finland to watch games because time difference. But yeah, I know the players and coach and something.
Your defensive game is one of the areas that you're really strong in. How did it become such a strength for you?
I think its biggest reason was my coach Olli Jokinen. He said before every game that you need the defense first, and then you got the puck and you can do whatever you want. So that was the biggest reason.
Was that challenging at first?
Yeah, it was hard for me because I like to do a lot of things with puck and attack and everything. It was hard for me, but it was good for me too.
How cool was that to have him as a coach, given how many games he played in the NHL, a long career he had?
Olli Jokinen, he's so good coach. You know, he's so active and he give you like tips all the time. You did something bad at the shift, he came you and told do something differently, and yeah, it was a good coach for me.
What was it like for a Finnish kid to see Barkov win the Stanley Cup?
It was very nice because it's a big thing for Finnish hockey, and there was 3 other Finnish players and 1 coach, so it was a big thing for Finland.
What's this experience been like? Like, who do you have with you, and what has the whole day been like leading up to this victory?
Who do I have?
Like family with you and stuff like that?
I have a whole family and agents and everything. It was yeah.
How was the trip for everybody? Just like seeing Vegas and just soaking all this in.
It was a long flight and but nice city, but I think it's too hot for me.
What's the plan for next season? Are you going back to Liga?
I don't know yet. We haven't talked about that, but I have a deal with Tappara, but I think everything is open.
What do you think about
Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen? As a goalie, he's a great goalie. I think, yeah, he's good goalie.
Have you ever met him?
No.
You were in Buffalo a few weeks ago, right? What was that like with the combine and stuff? You get to see the city?
No. But I want to, but we didn't went to city, but yeah, it was a nice hotel and a nice arena.
Thank you so much. Congrats.
Well done by Konsta Helenius.
Yeah,
It is so overwhelming.
Oh, I
and
start to sweat a little bit because
I'm
it
sure
reminded me
you
of
did.
'95.
Yes.
Having to face the media, not speaking enough English, but not very comfortable in it yet. And these guys, the Finns, the Swedes, are much better than we were from Quebec, but still, like feeling like, am I answering this right? It's an out-of-body experience. I just got drafted in the NHL. I'm not sure what's going on, right? 14th overall, by the way, was Jay McKee, who was also a 14th overall pick when he was drafted. I was a 16th overall, so I was not even.
We definitely highlighted that this morning on Sabres.
Hey, listen.
Or earlier today, I should
14th
say.
overall was Jay McKee, and 16th overall was me. And at the time, it was like they traded Alexander McGillney, and it's like, oh, what's happening? And Jay and I combined for a lot of NHL games and made it work, so that's pretty good.
More than 1,000 between the two of you.
I have 1,000 with all the ones I set on the bench.
So what I was impressed with other than the incredibly wide smile
Yes.
of Helenius, was the comprehension of the questions. Yes, it's hard to articulate the answer in a second language, but it's also very hard to ingest the question, right?
Yes.
He very rarely had to kind of follow up and prod for a secondary explanation. Again, so this is a microcosm, obviously, of what the person is. But when you talk about a player's ability to understand the game and play it, I'm fascinated, and you heard the line of questioning about the entirety of the season that he just went through.
Yes.
Marty, how often are we talking about, someone who played in the under-18, the under-20 World Junior, and the Worlds in the same year, along with basically playing up at the top level,
in La Liga.
As an under-18. Like, this is so impressive to me, what this young man has accomplished so far. And on top of it all, Vegas, too hot for me.
Yeah, no, that too hot for a lot of people in June and July, I know for sure. A couple of things I wrote down, right? He says, I'm not the biggest guy, but I play hard. Now, I know, like, size is, for a lot of people, matters. They say, oh, well, another 5'11" guy. What did Zach Benson do to you to think that smaller players can't compete and play hard?
What did you forget about Michael Pekka?
Oh, Michael Pekka and many others, like Stu Barnes. Stu Barnes competed like anybody else out there, was not a big guy. But in an era where big hockey players were even more prevalent than now.
Pretty sure Brad Marchand is still looking up to the 6 feet benchmark.
Yes, and we all know what that means with Brad Marchand. But yes, I say last year the Sabres picked Zach Benson, and as soon as he showed up at development camp, you and I looked and we're like, whoa, this guy competes, battles. 5'11", he's 100. Konsta Helenius is 190 pounds. Most 17, 18-year-old kids, it doesn't matter what they eat, they can't get past 170, 175. They don't get to 190 by being thick and strong and already possessing that body type that's going to make them successful at the NHL level.
Rasmus Dahlin has put on close to 40 pounds since he was drafted. Helenius is like kind of halfway there already, based on what you're talking. You know what I mean? Like, as far as what his ultimate size is going to be, weight-wise, with that height, like, it's impressive. And again, you don't allow
and Roseanne and those guys,
yes.
like in the last 2 years, how much muscle, how much mass, how much strength they've added.
Yes.
And Helenius is already 190. I'm not saying he's going to play at 210 and 215. He's 5'11".
Yeah.
But even if he plays at 200, and he's 5'11", 200, and he completely puts in that strength that he already possesses because he is at that level. And to play against men, again in Finland, you never survive against guys that are bigger, stronger, being able to play as a 17-year-old in the Liga, the top Finnish league.
Okay, first round obviously continuing from here in Vegas tomorrow. It's rounds 2 through 7, barring any transactions. The Sabres have 42 and 43 on the docket out of the blocks on Saturday morning. And it should still be Saturday morning in the Eastern time zone when the Sabres make those picks. It might just crest past noon at that point in time, but it tends to go pretty quick. After that, they have picks at 76, 108 and 109, 161, 172, and 204. We've seen transactions this week involving, like you mentioned, with Philadelphia and Minnesota right in front of the Sabres, and obviously with Buffalo and San Jose and how it ended up with the Sabres at 14. We're still lacking for big-name movement on current NHL rosters, correct?
No,
I haven't.
It hasn't materialized. I'm just refreshing my for another week cap-friendly because they are doing a really good job of following along. No, there wasn't any trades happening right now. That I'm trying to listen to Gary Bettman, and he said it. No, he's not announcing a trade.
No, because you would hear the train horn. Which is what is here tonight. The trade horn. Did I say train horn? I said
trade horn.
Yes.
But no, so there's not been a lot. But there is rumors flying all over the place. And we say it often that NHL trades often happen on the second day where, they got the first round.
Well, that's often out of desperation when it doesn't happen on the first.
Yeah, but you get the first round over, you get your meetings, you show up the next day, and then you just walk right up to a general manager and said, okay, let's make it happen. Let's make it work. There's still a ton of chatter out there when it comes to Marty Necas and many others that have not been traded. Not just have not been traded to the Sabres, have not been traded at all. And we know that Necas is most likely to be going somewhere.
If you missed any of Konsta Helenius and his introductory media presser, you can obviously find it on Sabres Social and ultimately at sabres.com. You will also get reaction from the general manager, Kevin Adams, when this night is all said and done. And it'll set you up for tomorrow, which is rounds 2 through 7, but there's still work to be done amidst all the NHL teams here as round 1 continues. So a final word, Marty, before we sign off from our live reaction here at Sphere.
Well, there's still a lot of things that are unexpected. I always say my first training camp in Buffalo, Mitch Gord came to me and says, Marty, in the NHL, always expect the unexpected. And where a draft like last year in Nashville went 1 through 32, everybody picked. This year we got Philly moving 1 pick, but I think there's still a lot to be unexpectedly expected as the draft continue tonight and into tomorrow.
Thanks for being with us tonight for the immediate reaction to Buffalo's first-round selection this year. They picked 14th overall and went with forward Konsta Helenius. A real bright spot as you look at just his reaction to the moment and how he indulged with the media moments ago. Thanks for being with us, and obviously, as always, stay tuned to Sabres Social and Sabres.com for more. We'll see you soon.